session really is on Industry 4.0 and automation. We have been hearing these terms for many years now. This session is really about finding out what's happening on ground, looking at some of the use cases, what the progress some of our oldest and biggest manufacturing organizations have made in Industry 4.0. So without further delay, let me get straight to Abhilasha and talk about automation on the factory floor. So when we think of Industry 4.0, we think of the shop floor. And when we think of the shop floor, we think of robots. But the new generation of robots are a little different from what it was 10 years back. And Abhilasha is going to take us through that journey. How are the robots, Abhilasha, different now than 10 years back?
Thank you, Goutam. I think when we think of robots, typically it comes to our mind that huge machines working, like walking in the floors, doing many work. But typically in the shop floors, those are robotic arms. When you talk about robotic arms, they don't look like a humans, but they work equivalent to the humans. Typically in in current shop floors, we have almost manless shop floors, especially like weld shop, paint shops. These are working with respect to zero manpower, almost 2 to 3 manpowers just controlling these robots. That too also just managing them with respect to that how these robots have been working, how these are doing the effectively working in the line and increasing the efficiencies. Traditionally, when we used to think that, okay, there will be some AGVs, 10 years back, we used to see some AGVs working on bringing materials to the line. But nowadays, with the robotics coming into the picture and with a lot of data getting accumulated with respect to how this will get made, the entire robotic arms have been used to do the entire manufacturing in many of the areas. I will not say they have replaced the humans. Humans are very much important in our scenarios because they take all the things to control this. So the arm from the physical, I'll say the traditional way of working has moved into the robotic arms, which is automated the entire floors.
Yes, we'll come to the people management part in a bit. But from Maruti, let's move on to Boeing, another manufacturing company and a company with an amazing, complexity, because I believe they have 20,000 suppliers from across the world, and that's talking of quite a bit of complexity. Aarti, welcome. Could you take us through your automation journey? How do you really manage? How do you leverage some of this exponential technologies we have been talking about to manage this complexity?
Okay, thanks for having me over. And like as you said, imagine manufacturing a plane is no easy job. And, when we would joke also, we'll say, you're not doing rocket science. Well, here we are actually doing rocket science. And, it is a very complex manufacturing environment where, if you don't digital, you cannot survive. And obviously, it is about a lot of focus on digital transformation, right on starting from the smart factory and going on to a supply chain. So I think those are the two real key areas they are focusing on. And coming to supply chain, I think there's a lot about, we have different businesses. So we have commercial, defense, and, the services part of the business. And imagine we have different supply chain systems across the board for different businesses. Not just that, every airline platform, like the 737, 787, and the different defense platforms that are there, imagine them operating literally like a mini business. So it is very, very complex. And, the business processes are very different. So we are doing a lot of digital transformation in our supply chain. Obviously, with the products that we are using, there is a lot of automation. So a lot of bots are there. There is a lot of analytics also in supply chain. Just to give you a perspective, when our procurement agents also just want to give an order, imagine without, it's like a number in thousand for procurement agents, and think millions of parts that need to be ordered. So even things like how do you prioritize, like for a human being just to go over that is too complex. So there's like analytics everywhere along the way, and we are putting more and more analytics and digital in our supply chain.
Awesome. Samip, question to you. In the pyramid of automation and the technologies that are available, what are you prioritizing for RPG Group?
Thanks for having me. You can hear me, right, Goutam?
Yes.
Okay. See, if you look at across multiple technologies, there are certain technologies from an automation point of view. There is either a digitization, there is either a mechanization, or there is a automation. These are actually three different things. But yeah, if you look at an umbrella term and automation, at the bottom of the pyramid, there is a lot of automation that results into efficiency, right? Either you're doing things faster, better, not involving human when it is unsafe or when it is repetitive. So something like a robotic process automation, I think maybe Aarti was mentioning it as bots. So that RPA layer, I think doing this, a lot of this repetitive, mundane, unsafe environment jobs, which is, I would still feel that it is must necessary, but it is still very efficiency centric. But as you move up the pyramid in that value chain, if you look at every technology in the digital is actually resulting into some sort of an automation, whether, let's say, for example, we talk about a computer vision. Now, computer vision is helping in a great way to monitor certain operation, whether it is inspection, whether it is quality, whether it is observing something during the process. For example, in one of our, we manufacture gas meters. In one of our factory, we have to look at when we are testing the gas meter before we ship it, we have to test and bring the reading back to zero, right? Because it's a mechanical indexing. So we pass the air for obvious reason, not the gas. But when we have to bring it back to zero in a traditional ways, somebody has to, there are, let's say, 12 testing sessions, 12 people standing and looking at when the zero happens, and they have to cut the air supply so that we ship it. But it is very difficult to get that perfect zero. While the industry was used to stopping at 3, 4 and accepted that, but beyond certain reading, we have to do, because it's a mechanical indexing, you have to open it, readjust it, and it means testing it again because it's a very complex component with very less tolerance for any deviation. So now today what we are doing, we've just got a very high-end computer vision camera which looks at a 0, 0, 0, and at a perfect zero it cuts off the supply. Now these kind of things are a great use of automation for moving into quality, for moving into inspection. There's another example I'll give. For example, some of the complex manufacturing operation, when people are working on the machine in our rubber factory or the tire factory, for example, when people are working on the roller, they have to actually pull the rubber sheet out from the rollers. Now, if the hand goes very close to between the two rollers, we've actually put a sensor which recognizes those photosynthesis made rubber gloves, and it actually, the roller starts revolving in the opposite direction. Now that impacts the lives of the people. So, and then if you go further up, the AI/ML are part of it. I'll just give one example. In one of our AI/ML platform, the platform actually for some of the commodities that we buy like thousands of crores of commodities, whether they're steel, rubber, aluminum, zinc. It based on the market sentiment, based on our inventory, based on who else is buying what in the market, the bot actually comes and tells you whether it's a buyer's day or a seller's day. Now that kind of an intelligent automation, it is still feeding in person. It is not directly going and buying just because the code thinks so or the bot thinks so, but it is very an intelligent automation of an intelligence which is very distributed. So if you look at on one side, you have an efficiency-driven automation. On second side, extreme, you have a very intelligent automation, which is augmenting human lives and the human decision-making itself.
Interesting. Abhilasha, coming back to you and the factory floor, how do you really define a smart factory, and would you say Maruti runs smart factories in India?
Indeed, I think we run smart factory. That is the reason we produce so much of vehicle which customer want. And on road, if you see every second car we have, it's our car. So I think that is what we call it with the way we can make it with the smart factories in place. So when we talk about smart factory, it talks about few things. That is, I think, one is the customer products making for the customer. The second is connected. The second C plays a very important role. Vehicles making for the customers. It has to be connected to get all the kind of data getting collected at central place. When we talk about product data, process data, and then we talk about the machine data. When all three kind of data amalgamate together, then they produce a right kind of car which is for the customers. So that is the reason we say Maruti makes the best of cars.
Since you mentioned customer, the customer experience has changed over the last few years because of consumerization of technology, right? How is customer experience, right, shaping your automation journey?
Typically in the customer journey, there are around 26 touch points before the customer buys the car. And out of this 26 touch points, Maruti's presence is there in 21 touch points, that too digitally. So the close connect that we capture with customer in all the touch points gives us sufficient information to do more close interaction with customer and do a very good engagement and convert them to buy a Maruti vehicles.
All right. Aarti, Boeing has been a proponent of embedded analytics. Would you explain what that means and some of the use cases?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, for us, analytics is embedded analytics, and what that really means is that we put technologies and capabilities right into all the product offerings for our customers. And just to give you some simple examples, we obviously sell the plane, and then with the plane, there is a lot of analytics that we sell with it. For example, we have analytic solutions on flight routing. This is a real-time solution which the pilots use, okay? And there is a fuel optimization analytic solution as well. And these are all real-time. And there is another one which also gives all the weather patterns, etc., and helps you guide the route that your flight will take on in real time. So there is a lot of benefit, especially in terms of fuel, that the pilots can use. Other than that, there is a lot of analytics that is also going into our simulators. So, for example, the simulators are used for pilot training, and that is very, very successful. So that is another area. Apart from that, we also use a lot of analytics in how we use our materials like composites, things like that. And we are trying to link analytics in everything we do. So right from, say, the material to production, to our supply chain, to sales. So, for example, even after we sell to our customers, what are the various kinds of parts, etc. are needed. So earlier, if you look at the old world, people would collect the data, look at the data and see what they do. But now what has happened is everything happens real time. So while the plane is flying, there is a lot of information that is provided. And in real time, there's a lot of predictive analytics also going on. Also use that very successfully for maintenance, especially around in the commercial space and also in our defense space. So, for example, see, every OEM gives certain specs that how you should use a particular product. Just as an example, we have some defense products which will say fly at this altitude, this is okay, this kind of temperature, things like that. But obviously different customers, the customers are across the globe and they use it in different conditions. So obviously the wear and tear, etc. would be different. And you will not follow a traditional maintenance approach. So it is all about what is really needed and do the right maintenance. So for everything that we do, you will see a lot of analytics into our products. And we are doing more and more of that just to, I think it's just become a way of life and just to up the value game for what we want to bring to our customers. And a lot of that work is also happening in our center in Bangalore.
Sorry, I missed that. Center in Bangalore?
Pardon me?
I missed the last part. Which center did you mention?
So we have a Boeing Engineering and IT and Analytics Center in Bangalore. So quite a bit of that work is also happening out of our center in Bangalore.
Right. In fact, I wanted to ask you that what role is India playing? Because you're a global organization and you run operations in so many countries. What role is India playing in analytics?
Okay, so basically we have a large analytics team here, and we have an advantage of the engineering team also being present with us. And we are working on, like I talked about, the flight optimization, fuel saving, routing, some of these solutions. We have teams in India who are working on some of these solutions. Even we've seen, solutions which have helped us increase our revenue as well. Reduce our wastage as well. So all these solutions, we have teams in India who are contributing to the global product. There's a lot of focus within our group in IT also into becoming more like a product-centric organization, and where some of these capabilities fit in.
All right. Samip, what sort of a collaboration do you have to run to be able to do your optimization, automation journey?
So when you say collaboration, is there external collaboration you mean to say? Or?
Yes. Do you collaborate with startups, for instance?
I think this, obviously, I think in quite a few areas, but I think there are typically when you say collaboration, in digital, it is collaboration of multiple things. One is a stakeholder that you spoke about, largely because you will have whether you're working with a large consulting firms to conceptualize the solution, to an SI for integration of solution, to possibly a small startup which is giving a niche solution. Now the challenge is integration, all of that, and that's where the success of digital lies, because you might have multiple IT systems, multiple solutions which are coming from either niche companies or your partner or your homegrown solution, and tying them all together, because I think the true value of digital is a lot of times is integration. Even in the manufacturing, if you see, traditionally manufacturing was what was under the shade, right? Now when we are looking at manufacturing post-pandemic, if you look at, there is a lot of need on integrated view of a supply chain. It is actually going from incoming to the shade, which is manufacturing, to outgoing. We want to see the entire sensitivity analysis, saying that if there is an impact on my source because of certain factors, COVID, non-COVID, any future natural calamities, what will happen to my manufacturing? What will happen to my fulfillment engine? So this definition of what we want to see in an integrated world is actually changing. And because of that, this collaboration is not just about startups or the different entities. There's a lot of collaboration need on the software and the data side, and that is where the real challenge happens when it comes to adoption and the successful implementation of digital technologies.
Got that. You mentioned challenges. I'll come to that, but before that, I will ask Abhilasha on some of the challenges in your automation journeys, particularly when it comes to change management.
It's a very interesting point that challenges. Typically, automation gives lots of insecurity in the human that their job will be lost. I think it's our prime responsibility to give the comfort to the individual, specifically when we are talking about the shop floors. The adoption will happen only when we say that, okay, their job will not be lost. It is only assisting them to do a better efficiency. So the first and foremost challenge is about the giving a comfort to the individual workmen, to give that this is assisting them, this will increase their efficiencies, their jobs will not be lost. So I think that is one core thing that we have to bring as a change management challenge to it. The second part is, this will also help in adoption of the technology better. Otherwise, whatever technology you will do, it will not be adopted in the world. The second point is also how to consume this technology. So whatever automations you do, whatever the AI piece we do, the only things it will be done, only acceptance it will be done once it is, the people know how to consume it. So they can give some prediction, but how to consume those predictions also is a very important skill. The third challenge is obviously from the skill perspective, again to get the right skill, analytical skill, techno-functional skills. When we talk about right mix of, I'll say functional skills, which can do right kind of functional knowledge, which can get built in with the statistical knowledge to get the right predictions. So when we talk about predictions, like I'll just take some example with respect to machine predictions. If the current is there, we get the current parameters, we get the torque parameters, we get the displacement parameters. How these three parameters together will be able to predict the machine failure. So for this kind of skills, we need two kind of skills. One is the functional skills, how this all parameters can be correlated together, and second is the IT skills, whether how to use this IT skill and functional skills to give the right kind of prediction. So all the two things to work together to give the right point. So as of now, industry is maturing, no doubt. We are getting a lot of startups and the companies to work on this. So we are looking forward, and then these kind of challenges will be overcome.
Abhilasha, the insecurity that you mentioned, is it more around the blue collar worker, or even the white collar workforce has insecurities because of adoption of new technology?
True sense, both have this kind of insecurity, because older organization or the legacy that we carry creates that, okay, in case I'm doing this work for day in and day out, in case the automation comes, whether my job will go off. So I think the reskilling plays a very important role over here, how to reskill that individual so that RPAs or these kind of thing will not remove the humans from the system.
Samip, your group is a very old group too, right? It's probably 200 years old. Have you faced insecurities amongst the workforce, and how have you addressed that?
No, I think in our case, I think challenges have been really less on the people side, and I think simple reason, I've seen a lot of digital technologies are actually making lives of the people better, and they'll make it better and better. And especially it is making lives of the people better which are at the front line, which are at the site, right? Because it is becoming more safer. I'll give you an example. When we put a sensor, one of our large construction company, KC, we do this large railway line construction, civil construction, etc. When the railway is coming at a distance of 1 kilometer or something, there's a sensor which actually senses that, and it buzzes the alarm few meters, and people can leave the track and make it clear, right? In the old traditional ways, it's like few people at certain distance using the traditional mic or something, hoot or something to tell each other, and it's really very difficult for people. So now people know that they're in an extremely safe environment. Or somebody was to go up and down the tower, which is 50 meters, for testing it. We can use the drone images for testing the tower. So I think there are a lot of such areas where I think we've seen that typically in an Indian labor environment, the life because of the digital will become easy and much more safer. So I think it's a welcome change. The one thing, what will happen is, let's say, for example, people who are doing some of the mechanical work actually, or the actual operation, which is getting done through combination of a digital technology, you'll have to train them to monitor it on an app. You'll have to train them to use some of the functionalities either on the portal or an app. So you'll have to use them, you'll have to train them to use the technology. It's not that the job is not going away. Of course, today what happens is that, let's say in my previous example, I gave you an example of the gas meter and 12 people monitoring it. We are deploying those people somewhere else. So maybe the approach of an RPG has always been not reducing the people, but enabling people. What will happen is, for the kind of work for which we hired, let's say 10 people earlier, in the new, maybe 2 years down the line, we may not hire those many people. But the current workforce, I don't think there is an insecurity, because either we are putting them onto a different role or we are training them on how to be using digital. But end of the day, because their lives are becoming much better and safer, or like an RP example, for example, a robotic process automation does a lot of automation of simple GST compliance, simple exim report filing, management dashboard. It is all done automated, right? You go home, run the robot. By the time you come in the morning, you have all the GSTs which are run, the report which is generated, PowerPoint is ready and sent out an email. Now the same job people would be doing at the quarter end after 5 o'clock, extra hours sitting over the weekend just because it's end of the quarter. Now if that lives of people are becoming easier and simpler, I think it's a welcome change that people see.
Right. Aarti, what are the typical challenges you have faced in Boeing's automation journey, particularly from an India perspective?
Okay, so I think, see, from an India standpoint, our center is pretty new. So using automation, using analytics, I think the crowd is, I mean, it's in the DNA. Let me give you that perspective. But every change, there are challenges associated with every change. So, what everybody talked about, kind of agree with both of them. And if I talk to you a little bit about Boeing's journey, I'll give a simple example. You have the tail fin of the aircraft, right? Just painting it was a very big task. Recently, we kind of automated that, okay, in the factory. And the time that now it takes has come down by more than 50%, as you can imagine. Okay, so even on the factory floor, there's so much automation that people are seeing the benefits. There is no resistance. People are welcoming that. But the challenge we have in Boeing is, especially if I talk from an India perspective, is, the business that we are in is really about classified information, especially in the defense space, where it is, export controlled. There are certificates needed, because people here are Indian citizens, not US citizens. We are obviously not in the US. So a lot of access restrictions and things like that are there. So to be able to bring about all the benefits, we are working to say, the whole IT systems were made for people in the US to work on. Okay, it was never imagined that in the early days that Boeing would become such a global company where you would have so many people outside of the US. So for us to do so much of this from an India perspective, I think our biggest challenge is classified data and how do you work around some of that. Regarding automation, analytics, etc., all of that, that is not the challenge. The challenge is more around the policies, the governance, around those areas. And we are definitely trying to drive the change that, when there is so much work happening here, outside the US, how do we make the systems more amiable where it is easy for folks across the globe to work on?
I think we are out of time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, panelists, for a very insightful session.